Hey everyone, I just thought I'd shoot this really raw, vulnerable video on my mobile phone here because I've just been crying, and not a quick cry either. It went on for quite a while. The kind of crying where you're kind of shaking at the same time, like, you know. And I wanted to share with you why it's been so important for me to learn how to cry again, and why it's so important to be able to cry sometimes. Obviously, we don't want to be crying in a way where we're stuck in the depression or stuck in remorse, but crying is an emotional release. Crying is actually biologically helping the nervous system to reset. And, I figured out why I couldn't cry for so many years. If, like me, you're walking up the school corridor and there's 4 or 5 bullies up ahead, and you keep on walking, and like usual, they start punching you, you get activated into a sympathetic response, a fight, flight, freeze response. Your adrenaline ramps up. And after you face that danger, your body's supposed to reset back into a parasympathetic state, back into a rest, digest, and rejuvenation state. But we have this prefrontal cortex that enables us to interrupt that system. And I interrupted that system probably tens or hundreds of times. Definitely hundreds of times. I mean, if a load of school bullies have just punched you, what do you want to do? You want to cry, right? But if you cry, you're thinking, well, my life might as well be over. I'll certainly have to leave this school. If the bullying's bad now, it is it's going to be astronomical if I start crying. So I shut it off. I remember having tension in my face, around my eyes, for years and years. It hurt in my face. I didn't know what that was about, until I figured that I was literally using the muscles to close the tear ducts off time after time. Every time the bullies had a go, every time they were violent towards me. And there were other experiences, which I won't go into right now, but maybe I'll talk about in the future, where the same thing was happening. Someone was being pretty abusive to me, really. And it was another situation where I had to hold back the tears. Again and again and again, holding back the tears. And then all these emotions, all this emotional energy gets trapped in the body as tension, as trauma, as a chronically activated sympathetic response. Because you're closing it down for whatever reason, for society pressures. Men don't cry. Shouldn't cry in front of the bullies, otherwise your life's over. You might as well leave school forever. Can't cry around your parents. Some people feel like that. Family, friends. Or that they've just been conditioned, just be told that it's not something that should be done. It's a sign of weakness. And this is dangerous and dysfunctional. Quite frankly, it screwed parts of my life up. Not being able to release trapped emotion and tension and trauma. But I finally learned how to let go. I finally learned how to cry and release those emotions. And it's liberation. Because every time you cry in that way of release, you relax, you let go, you open up space for new things to come into your life. You have more clarity and realizations afterwards. So there are a few components to this. One is getting underneath what you could call secondary emotion. It's like the sadness, the upset is the primary emotion. That's what's underneath. But then for a defensive mechanism, we layer on anger, usually anger. And it's being prepared to relax and come out of the stress response and get underneath that anger. To not deny the fact you're anger, to honor the fact that that energy is there, but to access relaxation. This is the next component. Letting go, relaxing the muscles. Relaxing the nervous system by slowing the breath down, extending the exhale. But there are a few things that really accelerated it, a few sort of techniques, shall we say. Now, I've been into breathwork for many years, but a really powerful breathwork for releasing trapped emotions is a double inhale, extended exhale. It's actually called a physiological sigh. It's usually done through the nose and then out the mouth if you're doing it on purpose for, say, 5 times in a row. And you do that 5 times in a row. But I've also done it through the mouth, so and more vigorously as well. So and then I figured out this thing. On the exhale, sort of stuttering the exhale as if you're crying. So it's like because that physiological sigh, this is what it's called in neuroscience. Physiological sigh. It's something that you do involuntarily to pop the little air sacs in your lungs back open that collapse over time. And it's one of the fastest ways that we know of from neuroscience to calm down again. And you do it involuntarily before going to sleep, when you're asleep, to rebalance the oxygen and the carbon dioxide, when you're in claustrophobic spaces, and when you cry. If you notice when you cry, if you've cried recently or you can remember the last time you did, sometimes just completely involuntarily you go, you see, that's the physiological sigh. So you can do this voluntarily. And basically done this in meditation sessions, and it's been especially helpful in the morning. A lot of people find that when they wake up in the morning, that overactive sympathetic response is there, the discomfort in the body, the stress is, just immediately there. A lot of people feel anxious first thing in the morning. And so I would get up and jump in a cold shower first, which really helps loosen up things. So do warm first, get in a nice warm shower first, get the muscles nice and relaxed, and then get it on cold and wake up the nervous system, get a bit of norepinephrine and extra dopamine going. That's what cold showers has the effect of doing. And then I would come back in my bedroom and start doing some meditation / breath work. So I would do this breathing technique. You see? It can make you feel a little bit lightheaded. They can be very powerful for releasing stuck emotions. The next thing to be able to release trapped emotions and cry sometimes if it's appropriate, and you need that release, is to be able to feel the body from the inside. To become familiar and intimate with your felt sense of the body, the inner sensate landscape. I have coached many men, and when I ask them about their experience of their body, what they can actually feel in their body, many of them first report that they can't feel anything, that they're completely numb, apart from maybe the feeling of their butt on the chair. And living like that is not healthy. Having all of your attention and consciousness just up in your head all the time, in the mind, in the thinking, and not having part of your attention, your consciousness rooted in the body, that's dysfunctional. Because emotions are not some abstract thing. They are most often very concrete physical sensations in the body. And if you're not aware of them, if you're not allowing them to exist within the aware spaciousness that you are, within your consciousness, they don't get the chance to fully move and be processed. They get stuck. And so just becoming aware of the sensations in your body, and when you have arising sadness, grief, or just you're overwhelmed with gratitude or beauty, you can feel that. If you pay attention, it arises as a physical sensation. So it's learning to be with that sensation and bring consciousness to it and be present with it. And that's something that you should be incorporating throughout your life anyway, but also at these times, perhaps within breathwork sessions or certain types of meditation, you become aware of the felt sense of the body. And that will start to loosen up these dense energies. That will start to get your emotions moving in a much more functional and healthy way. And then I'll add some extra things on top, namely visualizations, using the imagination to bring on elevated emotions, especially associated with gratitude and things that I want to create and the positive impact that that's going to have. When you're building a business, or you're just doing anything in life where you're putting a lot of energy or perhaps effort into, you're consciously using that the sympathetic state, the alertness. You need that sometimes, but it needs to be your choice to activate it. But still, as domesticated animals, again, this activation of the sympathetic response can kind of get stuck and frozen in the system. And so learning to be able to consciously release that has been so powerful. You might not always get success in the business or your career or whatever. And you start going into those thoughts about how things might not work out, and maybe it might be tempting to identify with those thoughts that say, I'm not succeeding, I'm not doing good enough, and it gets tied in with your self-worth and your self-value, and the next thing you know, you're on a downward spiral. So it's reversing that by also keeping your eye on what you're creating from the heart, what's really most important to you. And so I would do this breath work, and then afterwards visualize success, visualize giving back, visualize helping people and contributing, and specifically feeling the gratitude for that. And it's that gratitude that's having me cry recently. It's that gratitude, not only for the life that I haven't created yet, but also for the life that I have now. You know, I live in Wimbledon in London, UK, and I just feel so grateful to live here. I just feel, you know, I've not been to all cities in the world, but I've been to quite a few, and I know, you know, I'm going to have the bias because I'm English, but I did spend many years with the grass is greener attitude, wanting to get out of England and thinking everywhere else is probably better. But since traveling and since coming back, I've learned to appreciate the UK on a level that I never have done before. And especially being here in London, I mean, we just have so much, you know. It's pretty progressive here. It's pretty free thinking. There's really good scenes for pretty much anything you want. The spiritual and wellness scene isn't quite the same as California or something. It's different. We've got a bit of a drinking problem here in the UK. So London's full of a lot of pubs and alcohol. But we just have so much. We just have so much. The weather, you know, a lot of people complain about the British weather. It's cloudy and grey all the time. But at least we don't have tornadoes all the time, or hurricanes, or monsoons. We get the odd flood, we get some storms, but nothing that threatening at the moment. And the music scene. We have a great music scene here in the UK. And, you know, hopefully now COVID's pandemic is finally going to start to come to an end soon. I do believe that. We're going to have more access to venues and events. More events are going to be on. Festivals all around the UK for... This video just turned into me selling the UK. My point is, you know, I've got to a place in my life where I can actually feel that gratitude again. And that has come with being able to access the ability to cry, to, like I say, relax the facial muscles, relax the muscles in general, slow down the breathing in general, getting the body more towards a parasympathetic state. Leveraging breathing techniques, pranayama, this one that I'm telling you about, double inhale, exhale, and then even stuttering on the exhale as if you're crying. It doesn't matter whether you do or you don't. But if you do, and it's that release type crying, that's a very good thing, and you shouldn't be ashamed of it. This is healthy. This is normal. This is actually our body, our biology's way of resetting the nervous system. You don't see a gazelle after nearly being chased and run down and killed by a lion a day later being like, yesterday I got chased by this lion and it nearly killed me, and it came so close, and I nearly died, and my whole life flashed before my eyes, and it really traumatized me, and I can't stop thinking about when it might come again, and my whole mortality, and I feel like the fact that I nearly got caught by this line means that I'm not good enough, that I'm failing, that maybe I'm not athletic enough. You don't see them doing that, do you? No, you see a gazelle get chased by a lion, and then as soon as the lion's out of sight, the gazelle has a little shake and starts grazing again, and it's like nothing's even happened. How is that possible? Because they don't have that prefrontal cortex, that executive decision making part of the brain, putting the brake on, or the accelerator on, the nervous system. Now, that's a power in a way, that we can do that we can actually, it is the autonomic nervous system, which means automatic. So many functions are automatic. You don't consciously beat your heart and relax your muscles a lot of the time. But you can consciously influence it. This is what we're discovering more and more, right? And so it's a power in one way, but then it also becomes a curse, because we don't realize what's happening when we're suppressing our emotions and they get trapped in the body. When we have traumatic experiences and that trauma gets trapped in the body, they say trauma isn't about, it's not what happened to you, it's about the effect that it leaves in the body. The body keeps the score, right? The next thing to address is, does crying as a man make you weak? The answer is no. It's actually the opposite. Not being able to cry makes you weaker, because then you have more suppressed emotions in your nervous system, which disempowers you and weakens you. Yes, sometimes we do need to be able to regulate our emotions in certain situations, but then we also need to be able to release those emotions. And we can do that consciously. The last thing I want to address is this issue about being self-conscious about crying or releasing your emotions. Because obviously you might think that there's a lot of stigma, especially around men crying and releasing emotions. And I think the best way to address this is to tell you about my experience. I have told people in the past, both men and women, that I've been crying, or perhaps on a rare occasion someone might have seen me, or I might have released a few tears on the phone or something like that. And overwhelmingly people have been supportive. Now, you might have someone in your family or friendship group who's very anti-crying, and they've probably got a lot of suppressed emotions themselves, and you can probably see how that's panning out for them in their mental health. But in general, most people are going to be supportive. It's 2022. The notion that men don't cry and boys don't cry, I think it's getting known as a bit of an old school thing. There's more and more awareness nowadays that there's a complete crisis, an epidemic of anxiety and depression, and that releasing emotions and crying, sometimes being a part of that, is a healthy thing. It's being recognized more and more, depending on what culture you're in. But also, sometimes you have to be courageous enough to lead the way. Perhaps there's something courageous about crying in this modern day society. Perhaps if you can boldly release your emotions, you don't have to be crying down the street or crying in front of people, but not going to incredible efforts to hide your emotions, yeah, you can be a bit of a trailblazer. You'd be doing a good thing for the state of mental health in the world, to be able to access your emotions more and to be able to process them more functionally. So I think that's it for this video, and I really hope this helps someone. Peace.